cloud on this. All right, everybody. Welcome into our first episode this year of the NDL podcast. Jason isn't with us today because he was busy, so I'll be hosting. But luckily, I've got Ash and Adrian with me to do most of the heavy lifting. So Adrian, how you been since we last talked?
Good.
And Ash, yourself?
I'm done on that.
Sorry, you went.
Yeah.
You took a big
good,
pause.
mate.
I wasn't ready.
Yeah, all good, bud. Thank you. You?
All right. Good, thanks. Ash, we'll give you 10 seconds to talk about the Chelsea match yesterday, positives or negatives, but it's only 10 seconds. We're moving on.
It was a bit of a snooze fest, but a win is a win.
All right, did it in 7 seconds. Even better. All right,
Boom.
So today's episode, we're just going to do a quick rookie draft. We're going to draft the first round as if we were the owners in the NFC conference in the 32 league. We're just going to do that. Basically, we can talk about the top guys in the rookie class. And then after that, we'll talk about a couple other guys we like and a couple kind of long dart throws. We'll try and keep it quick because everyone's got lives and some of us need to be in bed about an hour ago. So I've got the first.
But
I'm going to draft.
we're doing it.
I'm going to
right?
draft in the first spot.
I mean,
Ash will draft in the second spot, and Adrian's going to draft in the third spot. And then we'll just kind of go from there through the first round. So I'm going to draft as the Motor City Mayhem, owned by Jason. His team is really bad. He knows it. He needs help at every position. But I think this year it's pretty clear. No matter who you have or what you need, you just go Breece Hall at the first pick. What do you guys think about that?
I went 1-1. I went Breece for 1-1 in JV. That's the only 1-1 I've had. So I can't really argue with it. Obviously, at the moment, training camp, they're saying that he's splitting carries a little bit with Carter. But I think that when push comes to shove, it's going to be more of a 65-35 split, if you believe something like reports and stuff. But he's just too much of a bell cow not to take. He's got all the attributes that you want in a number one, and his ADP at the moment is through the roof. So as an asset, if you're looking dynasty, even if you don't want him, you've got to take him because he's just so expensive to acquire. So if you could probably get him and then sell him off for quite a few picks. So he's got to be the 1-1 just in that regard.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you don't draft a guy, you don't trade up to draft a guy in the early second round to split carries. He should be their main guy after a few weeks. And like you said, my GA team is terrible. I'm taking him 1-1, keep him on taxi and sell him if it makes sense later.
Yeah.
Adrian, you like Breece Hall? You think he's a little overrated this year?
I like him. I just, like Ash said, I don't think he's going to be the bell cow. I think it's going to be a split. I think a lot of teams are doing that more to keep their running backs healthy, but we'll see. I mean, Carter looked good at the end of last year, so I see him still being a part of it, but I mean, there's a lot of hype on Breece Hall, so I'm anxious to see what the hype's all about.
All right, Ash, you're up with the second pick, picking for the Atlanta Dirty Birds.
Yeah. So I've looked at their team. Jeremy's the owner. He's got Najee and Barkley. So he's got solid RBs. Obviously, you could go Walker here, but for me, he's just looking at his wide receivers, Keelan Cole, Will Fuller, no team. Perriman, fifth choice on Tampa. I don't even know if he's got a team. Ridley, obviously, we know what's going on with him. Hopefully he can come back, but I don't know with that suspension at the moment. And then Manuel Sanders and then Valdez Scantling. So you're talking about his wide receiver one is Valdez Scantling. So for me, you just can't take Walker now. So you're looking at who's going to be the number two. For me, it would probably be someone my favorite wide receiver in this is Olave, but I think you might have to wait a season for him. So if he wants to wait a season, then I would go Olave. But if he's looking at literally because of Barkley, because of Harris, he's actually got a half decent team. You probably look at the man that's going to get the most targets out of anybody. And if I'm honest, that would be between two people, and that's London and Burks. So because he's got Ridley, I think that you can just double down. And if Ridley comes back, you've got both. You can sell one. If Ridley comes back and is the man, you can sell London. I know you've paid the 1-2 for him, but you'll probably get a mid first back for him anyway, because I think they'll still use him as an offensive weapon. Or if he is the man, then you've got the number one player or number one wide receiver for Atlanta. So personally, it would probably be, I would go London here at number 2.
Yeah, I think needing a wide receiver for teams that are all competitive, I agree with you 100%. I think London will be wide receiver 1, target option number 2. Yeah, it's a bad quarterback, but it's still high volume, and
Yeah,
that'll be good enough for you if you're looking to contend at all.
his yards after catch is really, really, really good. Like when you watch him at USC, he's like, I think he had like, don't hold me to this with the stats, but I think he only played like 9 games last year because he got injured, but he had more yards after catch than anyone else in the I think it's the Pac-10 or something, Pac-12. So yeah, he's like, it's incredible that he's still done that over 9 games. Obviously he's really tall, and he's got pretty much all the attributes you'd want as a wide receiver 1. So I think he's going to be a good player in the NFL. I really do. So I'd have no trouble taking him here at 2.
Great. Adrian, would you like to add anything before you make the 3rd pick?
I think he's a pick. I think that's
All
that's the way to go.
All right. So you'll now be
It's-
drafting for the Tampa Bay Panty Raiders.
Yeah, who's Adam Yeager?
That sounds a little bit sexual to me.
Just a little. All right, so we got Adam. So I was looking at his team, and he's solid at quarterback. Doesn't need anything, and I don't know if I'd go quarterback here anyways. Running back, he's okay. So I think he needs help. Probably both in the receiver and running back category. So he's got Kareem Hunt. I know Kareem Hunt's looking for a trade now, but I don't think they do it this year. I think maybe next year if they trade him. And he's got Damian Harris, which I think still could be relevant in New England. I know there's a lot of people high on Stevenson, but I think the main guy is still going to be Harris. Singletary. So he's got some, running backs. You only have to start one in this league. So his receivers are Claypool, Godwin, who's I have to see how healthy he's going to be, and then Thielen, which is aging. So other than that, he really doesn't have much else. He's got Guyton, who has I know a lot of people are hyping him as possibly a sleeper coming into this year, but I think really, Ken Walker, if you need a running back, but I really think receiver is probably the best way to go here, especially with the aging Thielen. And we don't know what's going to come about Godwin, see how healthy he is, and then Claypool. It's becoming a mess as far as the bodies in Pittsburgh. As far as the receivers, with the hype on Pickens and Johnson. So I think the pick here would probably be Treylon Burks, and I think that's the way I would probably go.
Yeah, I agree with you. Another guy whose team is decent, Burks could step in, be his, one of his best wide receivers immediately. So
Yeah, and I think
that pick.
think he got bashed a little bit for his I guess
Asthma, right?
in shape. Yeah. So but I think he's going to be fine, and they really don't have. They got Woods, but I think he's going to get a lot of love there in Tennessee. So, and he's got the talent.
Woods is good, but he's old. If you're drafting at the 3rd spot of the draft, your team's probably not great. So even if it takes Burks a year or 2 to break out, you're probably okay with that.
And Woods is coming off an injury too, so
Exactly.
He's definitely got the potential, Burks, to take off or be the man.
Ash, you got any comments on Traylon Burks? Did you like him as a prospect? Do you
Yeah, I
think he
really
kind of
did
hurt
like him
himself
as-
coming in?
Yeah, what I see, like everyone's debate was obviously because he doesn't run as fast as the others. Is he the slow one? Is he Laquan Treadwell? Is he a list of people like that didn't quite hit the heights that everyone thought, like N'Keal Harry and stuff? But
Those are some unnecessary cheap shots, first off, but go ahead.
Yeah, but I watched him for Arkansas, and when I first watched him, I was like, he really did remind me of AJ Brown when he was at Auburn. So it was just weird when the Titans got him, but he is very much the spit of him, like big body guy, big yards after the catch, big play guy. He won't. What he does well is once he gets in front of the defensive backs, they find it really difficult to get round him to make plays because he's such a big body dude, and he has got a more burst than you think. Like he might not be fast over 40 yards, but he is quite fast over like 5. So that's where he'll make his moves, and I think they're using quite a lot. Like I think that probably target wise, he's probably going to be the second most targeted rookie after London. So I can see why Adrian would go with Burks there, because Tampa are quite competitive. Like you can see that in that division, they're all quite even. There's some with better running backs, there's some with better tight ends, there's some with better quarterbacks, but the wide receivers, other than Atlanta's receivers, aren't great, but he's okay at running back and he's pretty good. So I'd say winners will come from maybe the other 3 teams, but I think that Burks there would probably be my pick if I was Tampa. It would be between Burks and Olave, depending on if I thought I was going to be in for it this year or not.
All right, Ash, I had a question I'd written down to ask you at the end of the draft, but I'll just ask you now since this is your second reference to Olave. Do you love him enough to take him 1-2 if your team's waiting, or would you try and trade back and kind of hope he goes around his ADP?
Depends how stacked I am. Like, I think that
in this scenario, you're drafting 1-2 and your team's not very good.
If you're not very good, then I would definitely be taking Olave, because I think that he's really, really good. He's going to be one of them players for on your dynasty roster you look back on and think, oh, and I got it. Because at the moment, most of the time you don't need to take him at 2. Right. But I personally think that he's going to be one of them guys that you take, and then he's just on your roster for ages, and he continues to make plays for ages. So it might be a slow burner this year, because obviously you've got Thomas and Landry, but them 2 guys will not be there next year, 100%. Right. They will. And then all of a sudden, you've got the number 1 wide receiver for the Saints. Like they know what to do with wide receivers. Like they are really good offensively, like, and they might even be in for quarterback next year and things like that. But just having the number 1 target on a high-powered team like that, I just think his route running is so smooth, like so smooth. Like it's kind of like in the mixture between Amari Cooper, Ridley, Keenan Allen. They'll in 2-3 years they'll look back and they'll be like, this guy's one of the best route runners in the league.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think they'd go quarterback next year, given that Jameis is still fairly young. I don't believe they own their first next year. They don't own their first, but I don't know if they have any other ones. But you can still be successful with Jameis, as we've seen in previous years.
Yeah.
At a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, he does support wide receivers. He did it with Mike Williams when he was there, and they've done it with Evans and Godwin, etc. So he can do it. He can support wide receivers at a high-powered pace. So
okay, so if your team is good, do you try and trade back, or do you just take one of the other guys? How much do you really believe in him as a future wide receiver 1?
I believe in him a lot. That I don't know if I'd I was having this discussion with Wes a while ago, like when my tier rankings, and I don't know if we had the same sort of tier rankings, but London wasn't in my tier 1 of wide receivers because it wasn't that I wasn't sure of him as a prospect. I just wasn't sure about where he would land. Obviously now all the landing spots have come. There's not really a bad landing spot between all of the main guys. So personally for me, like I kind of know what I'm going to do in some of the drafts. I won't, if I'm on a lot of leagues, I won't obviously overload and take him at every time. But if I will 100% make sure that I come away with Olave and at least a couple of them. And if I don't own him, I'll do my very best to make sure I jump up enough to be able to own him. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that's
Did you say
probably
you were chatting with Wes? Is that what
Yeah.
you said? You were chatting with Wes?
I had a conversation with Wes about our wide receiver rankings because
Nice.
quite interesting. Like, because obviously in theory at the moment there's 5 guys. There's 5 guys that everyone knows around, as in an ADP standpoint of the top 5, and then obviously you've got like another bunch of 4, I'd say, and then it kind of tails off after that. There'll obviously be 1 or 2 that jump up, but there is nearly always in every ADP, them 5 go first. So it's there. We were having a discussion. This was even pre-draft, and the same 5 were the 5 that we had in our top rankings, and they weirdly are still the top 5. And this was back in December and January, so they are still the 5 guys that were are going at the top 5 wide receivers in rookie drafts.
The reason why I say that is because I mean, I don't know. So are you and Wes chaps? I guess is that what you
Well,
call it? Friends?
Wes lives about half an hour up the road. So
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he's literally not that far away. So yeah, and he to be honest, he got me into Zach's league. So if we have bad trade offers, blame Wes, because he got me into these leagues.
Hey Ash,
Way to
is
go,
it
Wes.
cultural appropriation for Adrian to say chaps?
Chaps, yes, chaps is fine.
All right, just want to make sure that he wasn't
Don't use
stepping
it
on his
very often,
territory.
but you can use it.
Quick shout out Wes, one of the first guys to talk, join the league, same division, the NFC in the NFL. So good guy. Be more
he's a
If
active
I
in
don't
the
let him
Discord.
down, because I'll be picking for him here shortly.
All right. So we'll move on to the 4th pick, which is the Carolina Castaways, owned by Chad Satori, who I do not know, but I'm sure he's a great guy. Be more active in the Discord. We'd love to talk to you. He's good at quarterback. He's honestly pretty good at running back, given his spot. He's got Dalvin Cook, Javonte Williams, Tony Pollard, and CEH. So probably doesn't want to go with Walker here. His tight end's not very good, but I think it's too early to go for a tight end given the class.
Mm-hmm.
And his wide receivers could use a little help, as he's got Juju, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Gallup, Jalen Reagor, and Darius Slayton. So that's a team to me who is pretty solid at quarterback and running back. It doesn't really have that high end wide receiver for me, where I think like to me, I don't see the reports out of camp in San Francisco are good for Ayuk, but I don't think he's going to win the league this year. Juju the same way. I think there's too many mouths to feed after Kelsey, where I'm not sure Ayuk or Juju is really going to help you win a league. So if I was him, I'd be comfortable taking a guy who might take a year to fully develop as a wide receiver, might not give you immediate output. And really, I think that's all of these next 3 guys, as we've mentioned. But to me, my favorite of everybody left is Jameson Williams. So that's who I would take. I think he's got that crazy high end up speed, and Detroit definitely in the mix for a quarterback next year. So I would take Jameson Williams, which is who I'm going to pick for him. But I don't expect that's the pick most people would go with Walker and Olave still on the board.
Yeah.
Well, I am glad you took that pick, because I am now picking for Wes. And
Shout out
Wes
Wes.
is,
I was just helping him out.
So Wes is solid at quarterback. He's got Kyler Murray, Stafford. So he's set there. His receivers are Jamar Chase, Christian Kirk, Allen Robinson, who's getting some hype.
I think you're on for. I'm picking your pick before Wes.
You are?
Oh, yep.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Don't pick
I
my
just
pick
looked for it.
then.
Yeah, he's picking for
ahead,
you. So
go
who do
ahead.
you want? What's more important to you, your team or Wes's team? We'll see.
Obviously, Williams wouldn't have been my pick, but I can understand why people, and weirdly, Wes does like Williams, so keep an eye on that one.
You're actually picking for me then.
Yeah, I'm picking for you. So he's, I'm think that you're quite glad if this scenario has happened, because I've just looked at your team and you're pretty stout. But knowing who Adrian is as a drafter and what he likes to accumulate, is that he will take Kenneth Walker, because he's got Zeke and Fournette, both obviously. Zeke's on $50 contract with 1 year left. You'd probably maybe looking to sell, maybe in season sell if the team doesn't explode. Because obviously you've got Tyreek Hill, you've got Mooney, you've got Williams, Hockenson, like you're ready to win now, to be honest. So, but with the depth that you've got at wide receiver, I would probably, just because of your running backs of where they are in their careers, Zeke and Fournette, that I would take Walker here if I was your pick, Adrian.
I think you stepped on your pick.
Huh?
I think you stepped on the guy you were going for, but I think you've gotten this pick very wrong, Ash. Not the player himself, but Ash would definitely trade this Adrian would definitely trade this pick for 23 seconds.
Yeah.
you got to throw
seconds more than you would have ever met.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to throw in a couple fourths in order for me to take it.
All right, Adrian, I'll ask you first then, I guess. Taking you out of the scenario, you don't own this team in this hypothetical. Do you like that pick, or would you have gone for one of the other wide receivers?
I think running back is probably, probably the way to go. Yeah, because I mean, the receivers are stacked. I mean, there's a lot of receivers there, and you only start a few. So I think that was really the only pick. Somebody young. Zeke and Fournette are the running backs that are on my team. So I think, going with a promising running back with upside, I think would probably be the pick, just to build that depth for the future.
I agree. All right, now if you want to draft for Wes, we'll allow it.
So Wes, I do apologize for speaking out of turn, because I was going to try to take Walker for you, but Ash beat me to it. So really, I think he only has one running back. He's got James Conner, and that's it. So
from where's I'm looking to trade up big time.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, he needs a running back. So I think
trade
Kenneth
up or
Walker,
trade it for, an older low end wide receiver or running back 1, running back 2 kind of guy.
Wes, hit me up. If Kenneth Walker is on the board, hit me up, because I will trade back. Yeah, I mean, I really think he needs to go running back here, just because he has receivers. He's got Chase, Kirk, and Allen Robinson. Does he reach for a running back like a Cook, who's getting a lot of hype? But I think with Singletary there, you just don't know how much work Cook is going to get, and it's probably going to be a running back by committee. I think probably Cook gets more of the third down role, probably more of a receiving type back, but it's just hard to say how he's going to look there in Buffalo. So really, I think probably go with the best person on the board right now, and use that as probably trade bait, maybe to get another running back. So I really don't think he's in a position to draft for need in a running back. So I think the person I would probably go with here is probably Olave.
I'm with you. I just go best player available here as well. If you get sniped there for the running back, I don't think the tier drop off going to Cook is worth it.
Thoughts, Ash?
I'll definitely go Olave, definitely 100% over Wilson. I like Wilson, but I've already made my intentions clear with what Olave is, and I just trust the Saints organization more than I trust the Jets organization to get me a wide receiver 1, basically.
They got a lot of receivers out there too. I mean, they got a lot of receivers.
Yeah, I mean, the young receivers too, not the aging ones that the Saints have. All right, so I will be drafting now for the Tampa Bay Panty Raiders again. Is that right? No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is right.
Got a couple
Double picks
picks.
for Tampa Bay. All right, so I'm now drafting for Adam. We've talked about his team already, kind of how he's sitting, what he needs.
And he does
I
have
would-
Burks now.
Yeah, he does have Burks, but I still think I would just go best player available because I do think the tier drop off is after Wilson. So I would just go ahead and take him, and then you can use Wilson and or Burks as trade bait later if that's kind of what your team needs to do.
Would you, now looking at it, and see how it plays out, if you're Tampa, do you like the scenario where you've got Burks and Wilson, or do you prefer the outcome of Walker and Wilson? Because of obviously he could have taken Walker at 3. So now you've got a running back and a wide receiver.
So that's something we did not, at least I did not take into consideration. I probably would go Walker at 3, knowing that I'm guaranteed a tier 1 receiver at my second pick. I just think it helps balance the team when your best running back is, Harris and Hunt.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about that in lifetime, but yeah, I would go one of each. What would you do, Adrian, in that scenario?
I'd probably do the same. I mean, I think with the addition of a young receiver, I mean, take the chance of a running back.
Yeah. So you miss out on one of the 2 receivers, most likely, who are going to produce this year at a high capacity. But the upside is so much higher having one from each position.
I guess it might depend on how close you feel like your running backs can take you this year. Because if you think Hunt, Harris, and Singletary can take me close, and you need them, because at the moment, really, if you say Godwin might not start the first few games,
right?
Or if he is, he might become slow out of blocks. Then you're talking about your number 1 is Adam Thielen or Claypool. So are you more comfortable, like you said, taking Burks and having that high-powered number 1 rather than and then just trying to make do with your running backs this year, and then next year's running back class is sexy.
And honestly, like maybe you take both wide receivers. It's a nice position to be in because I don't think there's really a wrong answer because Thielen's getting old. Maybe you see if you can flip him for like a second or so, and then the camps or the reports out of Pittsburgh that Claypool's looking more like the wide receiver 3 every day. It doesn't exactly excite you as a fantasy owner. So getting 2, solid wide receivers would not be the worst outcome if you miss Walker.
I don't think there's really a bad scenario in that point, having 2 of the top 7 picks.
No, definitely not. Or maybe try and
have to start
1-1.
Yeah, you only have to start one running back too, so that makes it a little easier. So.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the 8th pick, which Ash will be picking for the St. Louis Scoundrels.
I always find the 8th pick in most of these drafts recently been very difficult. So I haven't really been liking the 8th pick at all in any of the drafts I've been in, because it's always I've always felt I'm making do and none of the big guys have dropped. In this case scenario, I mean, he's got okay quarterbacks, but then I think if you're just going to Pickett, you've just got another okay quarterback. You've got Cousins, Winston, and Pickett. It's kind of like, doesn't really excite me much. And obviously now you've got your running backs going, like he would be absolutely desperate to try and move up and try, because I think he's got like a later round pick as well. So if it was me, I'd maybe look at packaging them 2 and try and get up to maybe get Walker, because I think he's got like 14 or 15, if I can remember rightly. His wide receivers, I think like his team's okay, but then I quite like his taxi as well, because obviously it's got Akers and Etienne, but they're both, I don't know if they're going to be starting, like how are they going to start the season coming both back from injuries? Are they going to be in committees? Are they going to be, do you know what I mean? It's going to be one of them ones where I think this pick's really, really difficult, like super difficult. So it's one of the 4 wide receivers that are left, because I don't know if I'd want to take any of them running back still, because of what I've got with Akers and Etienne isn't the Cooks and the Whites up, they're not really going to jump me up into the next phase. So you've got Lockett, Sutton, and Renfro, which are all solid, like wide receiver 2 guys. So,
all right, Ash, before we make this pick,
he's got St. Brown on his
St.
taxi
Brown
as well.
on there as well. Yeah, St. Brown on there as well.
Let's help you make this pick real quick. Do you prioritize somebody with a good quarterback, with a high draft capital, or with the fell in the draft because of injury and personality issues that could be the most explosive? What is the most enticing to you? Because those are the 4 guys you got.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would take from what's coming out of camp, I'd just shoot for the stars. I don't know if I'd go Dotson. I think I'd go for Sky Moore, or I would go for Pickens, because I think they're talented wise are the 2 better talents maybe. And I just maybe think the Chiefs and the Steelers, I believe in what they can produce more so than Washington. So I'd shoot for the stars. Go this year, I'd go Sky Moore, 8.
All right. That's the hardest pick in the draft, in my opinion, the 8th pick.
But I would definitely try and package these 2 picks that he's got, because I'm just looking now, because I think he's got picked.
Yeah, I just checked. He also
get out
owns
now.
Yeah, he also owns the
15
15th pick.
So I would really try and package 8 and 15 to try and get to that 5 or 6, or if someone 4, and try and get in with them big boys. Maybe the top 4 picks would be awesome, but we might have to add a little bit more to get into that.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think of those 4 guys in the next tier, it's just pick your favorite and hope it works out.
Yeah.
All right, Adrian, do you want to move us on? We're on to the 9th pick.
Yes. So before we talk about the 9th pick, just wanted to say, and this 9th pick is owned by Dave Reed, who just had a baby boy, him and his wife. So just wanted to congratulate him again on the new addition to their family. So I know he's excited, and so I like Dave. He's I think when I first took over this team in the league, I think he was my first trade partner. So, and we did a couple trades. So he is active. Congratulations, Dave, on the son. So I'm sure there'll be some sleepless nights at first, but any child is definitely a blessing. So congratulations on that.
Congrats, Dave.
Congrats.
So now with this pick, so he's solid at receivers. So he's got AJ Brown. He's got Mike Evans, CD Lamb as his top 3 receivers. Nice. Nothing really on the taxi for him. He's solid at quarterback. He's got Lamar Jackson. He's got Zach Wilson on his taxi. My favorite quarterback in Daniel Jones also. And then, but his running backs, I mean, he's got Antonio Gibson, who I know a lot of people are down on. He's got Cordell Patterson. So we'll see if he can do a repeat of what he did last year. Not sure about it myself. So I really think that the pick for him would probably be taking maybe a reach at one of those running backs, as far as instead of going with like a receiver. So I think here, I think James Cook is probably the pick at running back. I think that's probably where I would go, just because I like Cook. I like him coming out of college. I think he's a stud of a back in a crowded situation, but I don't think Moss can fill that role. So really the only thing he would compete with is Singletary, and I think he has more opportunity to take that job over. So I would probably take a chance at James Cook here.
Yeah, the way he lay out his team, I think at this point, reaching a little bit for running back is fine, where you're not guaranteed on one of these receivers to hit anyway. So I think that's a fine pick. I'd probably do the same thing in that scenario.
Yeah. I think it's a toss up between what you think is going to happen in regards to, he's got Mike Evans there on $61. He's at 285. So you're looking at, to keep him on, you might have to franchise tag him or put a first on him. So you're talking about some serious capital there. So is it worth, if you cut ties with him, then you're obviously left with two amazing still wide receivers, but you might not have much depth. So, but if you believe that Gibson and Patterson will be there next year, then you could definitely look at maybe still taking a wide receiver there as well. So there's two ways you look at it. I think it's just comes down to how you think you want to push your roster on next year. So like you said, I think he's in that position where he can just see who's on the board and then address his roster and go, I think next year I'm going to move him off and then go with the player that you're going to replace either Cook or Pickens or whoever with the player that you're going to get rid of. Is it Patterson or is it Gibson or is it Evans?
Yeah, and one thing I think I forgot about is next year we get rid of the defenses too and add another flex. So,
yep.
So where now you can start 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a tight end pretty much. I think there's 7 starters. So really dropping those defense really opens the door to add that extra receiver or have that extra receiver running back.
Yeah, that's a good point that we probably should have mentioned before this draft started, but it's good to remember that, especially if you're gonna, at this point, you may be stashing whoever you pick on taxi, that what position you take him at may not matter as much as it would in the earlier picks.
Yeah, and if he went with the receiver, like Ash said, here in the situation, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad pick either. So really could go either way, but just with Cordero Patterson and Antonio Gibson, with how, a lot of people are down on Gibson, it'd be nice to have a running back there that, if he pans out, then it'll be golden.
Yep. All right. I believe I am on the clock picking for Dallas at the 11th spot. Does that sound right?
Yep. That's correct.
All right. So not going to do a quarterback here. So you got Justin Herbert. So you're good for a decade. Tight ends, again, not the strongest, but I still think it's a little early for that. And your wide receivers and running backs, you're pretty much in the same situation here. You got Jonathan Taylor, but then you got Miles Sanders, Alexander Madison, Michael Carter. So guys you can use, but probably no one you're super excited about. And then you got Cooper Kupp and Deontay Johnson, but then you got Marvin Jones, Alan Lazard, and Traquan Smith. So I think here what you just do is you take your favorite player who's still on the board. If he ends up helping you out this year, you're ecstatic about it. And if not, oh well. My favorite player left is probably Dotson. No, it's probably Pickens. Sorry, but I don't know if I make that pick considering that Johnson was just extended. Do you guys have a problem having 2 receivers on the same team, or do you just kind of overlook that in the scenario?
No, I don't think I would. Like, it depends on the team. But the Johnson deal, if it was like a 4-year deal, then I'd probably go the other way. But because it's only a 2-year deal, it obviously depends how far away you're looking and how. But I don't, with how his team's built, there's not really any running back that would just be like, this guy's I have to have this running back on my team. Whereas I think with Pickens, I think that he's going to do enough that you're going to be able to get strong capital, even if you think I'll hold him for the whole year. I personally think that even if he doesn't play much, because of how he's been balling out in camp and because he's so young still, he's one of the young, I think he's the youngest wide receiver of the whole group, that I think that you'll be able to go, I can still get a first for him next year. So you can keep him, stash him, keep him on your taxi, sell him for a first next year. And then you're in the play for the running back market if you want to hit a running back, and the caliber of running backs you'll get are better than the running backs you're going to take here. So I'd try and get the strongest asset, which to me would probably be Pickens, but Dotson's a close second for me.
Yeah, I think that's the pick we'll make then. We'll go Pickens there for him. And again, when the 2 guys ahead of you, Johnson, you're not going to beat him out, but Claypool could end up raising Pickens' draft stock just by being Chase Claypool and not being very good.
And he could he could even be the guy. You never know. Like, you could just literally ball out, and then all of a sudden you can sell Deontay Johnson that's on more wages or salary, than he is, and then all of a sudden you can you've got Pickens as the one, and you can sell Johnson for doing exactly the same thing where you can sell him.
And I forgot to mention, he's currently $6 over the season start cap, but he's got Aaron Rodgers on $73. So that's most likely where this year you make a move who will get you just under, but going forward, your cap situation will be fine as he retires and moves on.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we'll take Pickens there, and we'll move on to the 12th pick. Ash, if you'll draft for Arizona.
Yeah. So Brandon's always seems to be picking between that sort of late mids to late in the drafts. Every time we've seen to play against him, he's in NFL, he's in Chicago and NFL as well. His teams are always pretty balanced. In this case, it's very balanced. I mean, he's got two of the best tight ends, but he's 328 at the moment. So he's 28 over the cap for the start of the regular season. So whoever he brings in is not going to be able to play for him. Looking at his team, he's got Brady and Fields, which is nice. Brady's at 58, but it's still nice. I'm guessing that he thought Brady was going to retire and he'd have a easy pickup. Maybe he could just take Pickens there. But he's got Chubb, and he's got not really a lot else. Probably McKissick as a pass catching back would be a nice bye week play, maybe a flex if you're desperate. But then he's got Amari Cooper. That'll come down to Watson. And then he's got Terry McLaurin and Debo. So his wide receivers are very nice. His running backs aren't great, but I'm just not massively keen on taking a running back this early when you still got someone like Dotson on the board. I personally actually wouldn't even do that. If it was me and I was this horrendous with the cap, you're probably looking at getting rid of Corey Davis, which brings you down to just 307, and then you'd have to get rid of Jamal Williams, which then you're just under. If I was going to do this, I would probably play the long game, because any of the players I can take now, I can't promote them. So I couldn't promote Dotson even if I wanted to, and I couldn't promote whichever running back I was going to take. So for me, I would take the person that's probably got the most value at the end of the season, and that would be Pickett. So I think I'd take Pickett here if I was Brandon, not as this is the player I'm going to keep and start him because you've got Fields and Brady, but just as the one that I think that you can be able to get now, flip him, and probably get a stronger first than you're going to use this year, because you wouldn't be able to use the player anyway because of your cap situation.
Yeah, Brady's probably going to retire one day.
Yeah.
So, and we're not, Fields isn't guaranteed to be an every week starter going forward. So I don't think that's, I think that's probably the right ball, especially where you're going to be playing two tight ends probably every week. So having a little bit less depth at wide receiver than you would be if you reached or took one of the, like Watson or somebody, is probably fine.
Yeah, you definitely like sniping my picks there, Ash.
Sorry, bud.
But that's going to happen. So
yeah.
Yep. Be flexible. Let's see what you can do for Bourbon Street then.
I don't think he's got a second as well. So if I was Brandon, maybe I'd try and look at maybe moving out that position anyway. Because if you're not sold on Pickett as an asset, he's probably the best one to acquire there. So if you're not that keen on him, maybe move down 2 or 3 spots, maybe grab a second pick. Or even something next year, like a second or another asset that you might be able to use, or even a cap-friendly deal where you can move out of it. So you just get a little bit of a buffer. So he's in a nice position because someone might fall to him still, but he definitely needs to work on what he's going to do in regards to how he's going to move his team forward.
All right, so here I have a pick for the New Orleans Bourbon Street TTAA Flashers, which is Todd Richardson's team. So his quarterbacks are Jacoby Brissett, who may start for a little bit this year, and Taylor Heineke. And then he does have Mac Jones on taxi. So he has options to move Mac Jones up. He definitely has a cap room. Yeah. So he's probably going to do that. It's a 1 quarterback league. So yeah, I thought maybe Pickett would be the pick for him here, just to add another quarterback, but he's off the board. So he's, he's okay. I mean, he's got Kamara, he's got Ingram, he's got Elijah Mitchell, and Chase Edmonds, whoever wins that battle, or I think it's still going to be running back by committee there in Miami. But he's got Chase Edmonds there, who I know some people are high on there in Miami. His receivers are solid. I mean, he's got Devontae Adams, Gabriel Davis, DK Metcalf, Michael Thomas, Michael Pittman. So he is pretty stacked at receiver. So really, I think here, I mean, I don't think he would probably reach for, you know, another quarterback. I mean, it's definitely someone he could sit on. So, you know, if he's looking at somebody like Malik Willis or, you know, a Ritter or something like that, just to stash and see if they pan out. I mean, that might be a decent pick. You know, it'd be a better pick, obviously, in a super flex league. But, and let's see, a running back. I don't know, Rashad White. I know some people are high on him. I'm not so much too high on him as a running back. So I don't know if myself, I would take him here. So decisions of decisions. This one's a hard one.
I feel like you said a lot of words without saying anything.
Pretty much.
I understood everything you said, but
Yeah, I
This
think-
is a hard
yeah,
pick.
it's getting tough.
It is, yeah. I think probably going with maybe a running back here would probably be, let's see, now Christian Watson's out there too, right? Or was he
Yep.
taken?
Watson's still there.
Christian Watson's out. Watson and Dotson are still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably go best available here. I mean, you could reach maybe on like a Spiller, you know, take a Spiller here. I just don't know. I don't think, I mean, I've seen Spiller at Texas A&M when he ran here. I'm not too impressed with them, especially what they have there. I mean, I just don't know. He might get some goal line carries. But I don't know. Yeah, the pick will be Watson.
All right.
I'll take Watson and use him as, you know, maybe a way to get some picks in the future. But I
Yeah.
think best available.
I think you're
in
pretty
this spot.
happy there if you're able to get Watson falling there to you. Maybe he helps you this year, maybe he doesn't, but nobody else really
But you don't need
excites
him to. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the next pick will be the Washington. Washington's picking next, owned by John Lake. So his team's pretty solid, as they should be getting this late in the draft. He's got Mahomes at quarterback. His running backs need a little bit of work. He's got Chris Carson, Joe Mixon, Zach Moss, and Raheem Mostert. At receiver, he's got everyone's favorite Antonio Brown. And then doesn't really matter though, because he's got Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, and Jalen Waddle. So you're probably starting those three every week. And at tight end, he's got Logan Thomas, Tyler Conklin, and Cameron Brate, who doesn't really excite you, but you can probably make do with Thomas and Conklin if you need to. His main problem here is he's $20 over the cap, and his running backs are not great. So if it was my team and I was looking at it, you can maneuver the cap by cutting one of the defenses and kind of, they share the same bias. You don't really need both of them. And that'll get you within $7 of being good. And I don't think any of his running backs are really startable besides Joe Mixon. So I would take the guy who has the best chance of helping you this year at the running back position, which for me is probably Dameon Pierce. So that's where I would go. Just hoping that he's able to crack, that role in Houston and giving you some value when Mixon's on a bye, if nothing else.
Adrian, the home pick for that one. What have you had any heard anything good out of camp at the moment?
Well, they say Mac is looking good. So, but they do say that Pierce is looking good as well. But the thing that with the Texans organization that we needed desperately is somebody that can hammer the ball in the end zone, because we sucked when it came to goal to go and trying to get into the end zone. So, and I think is that running back that can do that. I mean, he did it pretty good in college. I watched a lot of film on him in college, and I'm excited about him. Just to, even if he plays that role, I mean, you're getting 6 points, you know, for him just to hammer it in. So if they give it to Mac, if they let Mac go between the 20s and give it to him at the end, I mean, I think he could definitely still give you some solid points in fantasy. And, you know, with the ability to even take over, you know, if Mac doesn't, you know, come true to form, you know, he says he's back 100% from his Achilles. So, but that's still yet to be seen, you know, game time. So I love the pick.
Yeah, my thought process there was really, of the top 3 backs left, Pierce, Spiller, and White, who's got the easiest path to taking the carries away. And Mac seems the easiest to overtake versus Fournette and Eckler.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only other person they have is Burkhead, who's what,
Sexy
45
Rexy.
years old.
He won me a league
47
last
years
year,
old.
so I'm never gonna disrespect him. Dalvin
Very
Cook
true.
missed
He
a
can-
game, so
he
I
can definitely
plugged
still
Rex
get the ball.
Burkhead in the championship and he got like 20 points.
You can definitely still get it done. That's for sure.
All right, Ash, if you'll pick for Minnesota, who I believe is Tom's team because he owns Minnesota in every league, and he's never gonna listen to this. I want to say one thing real quick. Fuck you, Tom. I work with him, so that's my guy. He got me in these leagues.
Yeah. Tom used to always send me trades all the time. I blame Tom for rubbing off on me, to be honest.
That's fine. He's notorious for shit talking other people's offers and then sending out something worse.
Yeah. He's a good egg, Tom. He's always competitive though, and his team looks decent. Like, obviously he's got Watson, which is fuck knows what you can do with Watson at the moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, his team's solid. Hurts, Watson, Dobbins, and Henry. Obviously, if you're not sure, Dobbins will be back, but you've got Henry as a rock, and he's like 2 running backs in these sort of leagues. And then he's got his wide receivers are all right. He's got Parker, which is probably going to be the one in New England, but is that anything to shout about? Then you've got Keenan Allen, who's absolutely rock solid in PPR leagues. And then you've got the unknown, which is Tony, which could be great. It could be another just nothing that the Giants have been churning out recently at wide receiver. So he's 301. He's got Ertz. So you could even say that he could even go McBride here. This is probably the only one that I'd look at and say, do I just double up? But then he's got Schultz. And obviously Schultz is your starter every week. And then even if, I know he's going to be playing under the franchise tag, most likely at Dallas, but then even if he gets traded or he just goes next year, he's still got maybe like an Austin Hooper type of player that even if he's goes somewhere else with sort of like a high CV and he still doesn't pay off, it's still okay for these sort of rosters. And at $18, it's pretty a bit of a snip. So I probably would just go for the one with best ADP here, best player available, and I would probably just take Dotson because he's still on the board. Getting him here, you've got a solid asset that as a wide receiver 2 and a flex option, I think that's going to be pretty good. I mean, he's first round caliber player as well. I like what I see on tape. I just don't know about Washington as a team, but as the best player on the board, what you could get the most for, Dotson would be the pick. I think that you could probably sell him for the most out of anyone left on the board.
Yep, I agree. Nothing more to add. Just take best player available there, and your team's that good still.
All right, so I'm gonna need some help. Who do we take for St. Louis on the first pick? Ash, remember?
I deleted everything as we went.
St. Louis was 8, and that was Sky Moore.
Yep.
Sky Moore. Okay. All right. So yeah, he's up for his second pick. So that is Casey Jones. Casey Jones, I am open to trading back with my 105. So just keep that in mind if you're listening.
Hey, this isn't the promote your team, make trades podcast.
So he has another receiver to go with his Lockett, Renfro, Sutton, and St. Brown. His running backs are Robinson, Akers, Etienne, and Rex Burkhead, the championship winning running back, right?
Yep, my
So
Burkhead jersey's in the mail as we speak.
there you go. So really here, and his quarterbacks, Winston, Cousins. So who do we take here? Let's see. His tight ends are Knox, Tanyan, and Njoku. Let's see, the best player on my board, I think, is probably Rashad White and Spiller. I don't think he would take a running back here. I don't think a running back would be the call. So let's take a shot at a quarterback. So let's take the let's take Malik Willis.
Bold.
Yep, I
Right?
think once you get to
Ritter.
115,
I mean,
everything's fine.
Yeah. I mean, he's not going to need a quarterback for this year. So, and I know the hype is a lot of hype on Malik Willis, and who knows if he can be the man, but if he is a man, I think he's a quarterback to take between those two. So I
All
think I
right.
like Ritter more, but I think Malik Willis is has more hype.
Yeah, I think Ritter's more likely to get points this year, but Malik's more likely to be higher ceiling later. So to finish this off, 16th pick is Joe. We're not going to say anything nice about him except for that he loses championships. So congrats on your second place finishes. It's a stacked team, obviously. He's weak at quarterback. All he's really got is Derek Carr, and then it's Teddy Bridgewater and everyone's favorite Ryan Fitzpatrick, who I believe retired. So that's not going to help you.
Yes.
Would have gone Willis if he was available. I don't mind Ritter here because you may need him to cover the bye week this year. Though Carr's bye is week 6, so is Willis or is Ritter starting by then? Who knows? But the good thing for him is he's got 116 and 2-1, so you can kind of be creative. His running backs are his significant running backs. He's got Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, solid there. He's very thin at wide receivers. He only has 3 in his starting roster, which is Hollywood Brown, Stephon Diggs, T. Higgins. So that's a solid 3. Plus he's got Bateman on taxi. My favorite player left is John Mechie, especially if your team's this good. You can let him sit the year out, win his cancer battle, and then you got him for next year. But I don't really know if you do that when you got those 4 guys ahead of him. I would probably go with Spiller here, just because then you've got Eckler's backup. And if Eckler retires or gets hurt, you've got a starting running back each week. And then with a 2-1, you can either take Mechie or Ritter is probably what I would do. But we're not taking the 2-1 pick, so I don't got to say my answer. So I'd probably go Spiller.
Yeah, okay, Spiller. If I was Joe, I'd try and maybe jump up just to maybe St. Louis's pick and see if obviously if St. Louis is not packaging something to move back down to get a lower pick, but if he sticks and holds, maybe if I was Joe, I'd try and look at just jumping ahead of 1 or 2 players just to make sure I can lock in that Chargers backfield with Eckler and Spiller, because Spiller could be one of the ones that you could even see him go at like 1-8, and you could see him go at like 2-2. He's going to be one of them ones where it just depends on the team, the roster, and what they believe Spiller is in that Chargers offense. So he's going to be an interesting player in this draft. I think Spiller in a lot of these drafts, because he's most people he was the running back 3, like when college football was on mid-season, sort of November, December time, and obviously he's just fell like a stone with the workouts. But obviously the landed spots happened. It's kind of picked him up a bit. So we'll see with Spiller, but he's going to be an interesting one. He's going to be one of them ones where you can kind of see he'll go anywhere over this board between 1.8 and 2.2.
And there is, of everybody in that second tier running backs, there is a path for him to become a solid fantasy asset for the next 5 years. I mean, Eckler's what, 28?
Mm-hmm.
And if he can, if the Chargers don't take running back next year and he ends up the starting running back a year or two from now for a Justin Herbert led offense, you're pretty happy with that.
Yeah, the Chargers won't be going running back anytime soon. They're just with how that roster's getting built. The next person that's going to get paid is Derwin. Then the next person after that will be Justin Herbert. So you're talking about a team that has got basically like a 2-year window. You're not going to be dropping any sort of running back in that if you've got to start rebuilding on players that have got 5 contracts. So Spiller's sneaky. He's one of them players where you might have to wait a while, but 2 years, you might be sitting there thinking, I've got an absolute lock as a solid running back, sort of 1-2 fringe. Because like you said, Eckler, they can, he's not on loads of money, but they can get out of a deal in about 2 years' time.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm a big fan of having your star running backs back up just in case, which makes that pick much easier.
Yeah.
All right.
And they got rid of Jackson. So
go ahead. Sorry.
I said they got rid of Jackson too, so it just leaves Roundtree as the other running back there to kind of compete. So,
So that concludes our 16 pick first round draft for NFC 32. If you don't like our picks, just draft somebody better instead, and don't get mad at us because it was all fake. But we tried to help as much as we could. Ash, do you have maybe 3 players that you really like, or I guess really like, compared to everybody else who are still available after this pick?
I think Rashad White is the one that probably sticks out for most people to say, like, who's left on the boards. I think that Fournette's never been much of a pass catching running back. Obviously, he picked up a lot of receptions this year, but I think that was just due to no one else on the roster that was any good at catching the ball. So,
and he wasn't incredibly efficient with them.
Yeah. But Rashad White's probably got, I would actually say he's probably got one of the best hands in the draft as a running back. So you're talking about a player that's known for catching the ball. So he is kind of like that James White, I hate to say it, for Brady in this offense. And I think that obviously reports coming out that Fournette is turned up a little bit overweight and bits and pieces like that. You're like, will White get? And there's nobody else on that roster. You're just thinking, they're going to take touches away. So White would be one that stuck out. If I was the 2-1, I'd be well happy getting White there at 2-1 because a lot of the time he's been going around between 12 and 14 in most drafts. So probably he's one that I would keep an eye out. Tolbert is another one, obviously, because of Gallup's injury. So is he walking straight into being that wide receiver 2 in Dallas? We just had news that James Washington's got a foot injury as well. So you're talking about, you basically got CeeDee Lamb that's going to get peppered. Then you've got Schultz, the 2 running backs, and then Tolbert. But as a wide receiver, he's probably the wide receiver 2 there. So he'd be another one that I'd be looking at. Trey McBride's the next one, obviously, with Arizona. Ertz will probably be there maybe one more season, but it looks like McBride reminds me a lot of like a Hunter Henry, Cole Kmet, one of them ones that kind of do it all, but it's not that flashy. So good hands, good speed, like good red zone, but will he ever be like a pure tight end one? I'd hazard a guess, maybe not, but he's someone that's going to be rock solid for you if you're looking at tight end premium stuff, especially. I'm big on Brian Robson out of Washington. As a goal line back, I think he's one of the best ones in the draft. I think that Washington really like him. They wouldn't have given away that many picks to move up to take someone as talented as him for no reason. So there's obviously Washington's a weird one because obviously they've got Gibson, they've got McKissick, and you think, well, there's no real reason for him to be there. But I think that Washington just really, really, really like what they get out of Robinson because of Gibson's had real problems. He wasn't great, that efficient on the goal line last year. So I think that you might have something similar with Washington as you would do with someone like Las Vegas this year. Obviously, they've got Zamir White that's came in. You've got Jacobs, you've got Drake, you've got Bolden, you've got Abdullah. There's a lot of running backs there, and they were saying they were going to just use it by committee. So it kind of makes you feel a little bit hesitant. But Robinson as a talent, I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. I think it's just that because Alabama have been churning out running backs loads that you think, oh, is he gonna be like that good? But he's definitely in the mold of like a Harris and an Ingram. Like he's not Najee Harris, like Damian Harris. So he's more of the like not that explosive, but he's just super, super consistent, always gains the yards that you need, threes and the Thors. He's not really a take it to the house 65-yard dude, but he'll definitely get you some points. So injury wise, I think that if they lost Gibson or McKissick, I think that Robinson would come in and have a lot of work at running back. And then probably like another one that's semi high up at the top. I'd probably take a punt, especially in 32. I'd probably take a punt at Jelani Woods just because I love all the assets that he's got. Like 6'7" out of Virginia Tech. Like he's got one of them ones where you look at him and think like, how did he even fall that far in the actual draft when you actually look at his profile? But he tested really well. And if I'm honest, I think that if there's anyone that comes out of this group as a wide receiver to be, the tight end, to be the tight end one and actually be really, really dynasty relevant, it would be Jelani Woods. So they would probably be the five that you kind of look at next and you think like, these are my debates. There's obviously a few other guys there like Davis Price and
I was just about to ask Adrian, is there anybody Ash didn't mention that you're high on before we give those honorable mentions? Not a lot.
Kind of just questions about, I guess for Ash. So what's your thoughts on Tyler Algier?
So I'll comment on him real quick, if you don't mind. I live about 10 minutes away from BYU, so I watched him play a bunch in person on TV. He's my favorite pick. If you're drafting in that second round and you need to pick somebody who could help you out this year, I think he's got the clearest path to kind of, he's not going to be James Robinson in his rookie season, but he could plug in there and end up being fairly valuable. He's a patient runner who hits the hole hard, and he doesn't have a lot of competition in front of him as a pure runner. So I think he's worth a pick early to mid second round to just kind of hope he gives you something this year. And, he doesn't have the draft capital to solidify himself as a long-term asset, but if he plays well enough, you never know what happens.
Yeah, and if Patterson drops off, like he had a good year last year, but he's been in the league for a long time. So does he repeat?
And even then, a lot of
history
his
shows he
value
probably doesn't.
Yeah, and most his value came when he was active in the receiving game. As just a pure runner, he wasn't overly helpful.
No, and different coaches now, right?
Yep.
OC, so they may not use him the same. So.
Okay. Right. Sorry to cut you off, Ash. If you've got
that was him. I mean, that was the one that the name that stood out to me.
Yeah, totally agree with what you said. Like he's one of them ones where it's a shoot. Like you said, you're getting into the second round now. Like the hit ratio of these second round players isn't amazing, and especially the group of the rookies that we've got this year. It's a real mixed bunch. Like I personally think you've got 7 definitely fantasy relevant players that will continue to be fantasy relevant for a good 5 years, which for dynasty purposes is way long enough. Then there's going to be 1 or 2 that come out of the next 10 that will be maybe even better than the 7 that we've even said, because normally there is like a few dudes that just surprise. And then everyone after that, normally within like the early second between like the 2-1 and 2-6, 2-7 in all of these drafts, like over the years that I've been in them, you'll always find that you can get somebody of dynasty value. And they've always been pretty consistent because we've had strong-ish QB classes. So what it's done is it's just pushed everybody else down. But obviously this year, the QBs are just as erratic as some of the other positions we're looking at. So you've got kind of like a real sort of like, you've got kind of like a dartboard of 20 players, probably from around pick 9, 10, and 11, all the way down to like 206, where you just got to shoot for the stars and see what you can get. So I wouldn't have any problems with people taking even Algier at like 9 and 10. If that's who they believe in, that's who they think actually he's got a clear path of being, like you said, the guy as such, then just go for it. Like there's no real right or wrong answer with some of these players now, because I would say there's like a clear kind of like top 7. Maybe you could squeak another couple of guys in there, but then it just gets a bit muddy after that. And I think that you, like you said, just take players that you think actually this is my logic of why I think this guy is going to be worth taking here.
Yep. Algier could easily be the backup or third string running back for Atlanta this year and be replaced next year, but he could just as easily be the RB1, in my opinion. The other guy I mentioned I like, if you have a team you don't need help this year, I like Mechie. I think he's talented. I think Alabama's been putting out solid receivers. So if you can afford to stash a guy, I think he's worth picking as well. And then everybody else, just pray and hope for the best, in my opinion.
Yeah. What about you, Adrian? Anyone there?
As far as, well, I mean, like I said, Tyson, but I mean, I like Mechie, like you said, but I think that's it. I think Algier is the one that I had. Anybody else? I mean, what do you think about just because of the hype, the recent hype about Rodgers calling out Romeo Dobbs? What do you think about Dobbs versus Watson?
I think Dobbs
saga.
I think he started to climb up a lot of boards. You'll probably see him go about mid-second by the time we draft, because I can't see that there's going to be any sort of like negative news come out within the next sort of 7 days. And obviously people will be on the clock second round, sort of 10 days time. So he's in that category. Personally, Dobbs is in that category with like Shakir, with Thornton. I personally think he'll probably go ahead of Mechie. But it'll be probably after them running backs, and he'll probably be after after Talbot and Robinson and Pierce, which are like the indie guy, the New York Giants. But he's in sort of that mold. But I would definitely be taking him ahead of some of the other guys that are around for the wide receiver position, like Velus Jones. I mean, 25-year-old rookie. I would just be staying clear of him. From Chicago. Calvin Austin, or like the speed, but again, you're talking at such a crowded bunch. So Dobbs I would take just because he's in Green Bay, and you've got a much, like, obviously the rookies they've had hasn't been great over the years, but I would say this year amongst any is a real open competition for targets. So I think Dobbs will be a good position there to take, to be fair.
Yeah. And Watson's a little gimpy, I guess. Well, we don't know, I guess, exactly. Maybe you know, but I mean, I know he's a little gimpy right now. But I still like, I think Watson with his size has a better upside, but I think Dobbs can still fill a role, with Rodgers.
Yeah, if you had said this in December, then Dobbs was probably higher than Watson. Watson broke out massively at the bowl game in the East West Shrine game. He was just like, it just blew up. And then everyone was talking about his catch radius and bits and pieces. The only thing I worry about is that there's always players like that come along quite, and then they get drafted high and it never kind of works out. I remember Jets took Stephen Hill. He blew up in the combine and on a few of their games. Big catch radius, like speed, got everything there, but he just never quite put it together. My one concern with Watson, like someone like Denzel Mims is another one. There's always them sort of guys that competition-wise, they've never really
Smaller school.
I mean, he's a smaller school guy, but if he was that, like, this is just me personally, if he was that good, his numbers should be insane at a small school, because they should be like, he's playing smaller competition. They should be insane. And I know people go, oh, quarterbacks aren't as good, blah, blah, blah. But if you're that good as a prospect, and then he went down to the bowl games and he did play well. I'm not saying that he didn't, but I would just worry that I think that he needs more development. And my issue is he's already 23. That would be my main concern. That's why he would be closer to the end of round 1 as a personal prospect, more so than he would be 1-8.
I think there's a lot of hype on him being kind of, kind of comparing to Adams. So I think that's what kind of gave him a lot of more hype, because he
Yeah.
is a taller receiver.
Yeah. He's got all the
And just-
attributes you want.
The draft happening
Yeah.
around the same time as Adams leaving. I think everyone is looking for the next big thing in Green Bay, which shoots
Yeah.
him right up being the draft capital.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So I think we're going to call it quits here. We've gone about an hour and 20 minutes. So we gave you an extra 20 minutes for free. So you're welcome for that. Ash, thank you for joining us.
All right,
I'll
man.
be messaging you next Sunday at about 9:30 a.m. my time with beer in hand for Chelsea Tottenham. So be ready for that.
Yeah.
And Adrian, thanks as always for jumping on. Let's do this again soon, boys.
It's fun.
Yeah,
fun.
boys.
All right. We'll talk to everybody. I don't know if I have anything next week, but by the time the season starts, we'll be hopefully back frequently for you. Talk
And
soon.
hopefully Jason will be back with us. He should be back hopefully soon.
Jason
For
W,
sure.
not Jason K.
Correct.
All right.
All right. Take